Hello, everyone, and welcome to Respawning Fire, the kick-ass irreverent gaming podcast from Affable Idiots. I'm one of your hosts, Alexander Kazina, aka Cozy Bear, and this is our backlog accomplishment with Respawn and Friends review, also known as our BARF review of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. That is a very poor impression of a plumber, Chad. You're going to have to work on that. Boy, oh boy. Joining me this evening, we already introduced him by name, is, of course, the one and only Chad Michael Innes.
Can you get that? Thanks a lot. Can you get
joining me as
Thanks.
well?
I get that's an impression of the plumber from Rocko's Modern Life. You remember that episode? You see his butt crack all the time, and Rocko had to go and lift it up.
He's been to both PAX East and PAX West. Adam Gumbert.
Oh, hey, you picked the wrong choice. You gonna go back and try it again?
Is that Obi-Wan Kenobi? Yes.
Running the ones and twos is the one and only immaculate Joel Campos.
I wanted to do a voice from the game, but the one in the menu is like very fucking weird. Yo, the Asian lady. Like, what the fuck? It's so bad. Like, why? What the fuck?
Before we get into the swing of things, remember that you can catch regular episodes of the Respawning Fire podcast live on both twitch.tv/Affable Idiots every Sunday evening at 8:30 p.m. EST. Normally at 8:30 p.m. EST on a Sunday. However, we're recording this on a Monday because we couldn't make Sunday work. And of course, as said episodes also post to YouTube and podcast services every following Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But this is no regular episode. This is our BARF review episode for September of 2024. At the beginning of every month, we ask you to go to our Twitter account and patreon.com/respawningfire to vote on a game for us to play throughout the month. And this past September, we asked you to choose between 4 games that either had been or soon will be published and or released in physical form by Limited Run Games this year. The 4 games in question were Arzette, The Jewel of Faramore, Plumbers Don't Wear Ties Definitive Edition, Penny's Big Breakaway, and Toomba! Special Edition. Full disclosure, the theming of this particular poll was entirely my idea, and I want it on record that as much as I was rooting for it, I did not think that Plumbers Wear Ties would actually win the poll, if only because historically the more jokey, less quality entries on these polls don't tend to be very popular. But this particular game,
you wouldn't have the context of the 2016 general election in the United States, Cozy. Sometimes the joke candidate wins and everyone pays for it.
They sure do. Let me tell you a little bit about Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, as defined by Wikipedia.com, is an adult-oriented romantic comedy visual novel / dating sim. That is Wikipedia, not me, defining the game as such. The game first released on Windows in 1993, and then shortly after on the 3DO video game console in 1994. Did any of you ever own a 3DO? Did you ever see a 3DO? Were you aware of the 3DO before playing this game?
I knew what it was.
Yeah. But nobody owned one, so nobody would have played this game back in the 90s.
It was developed by United Pictures, spelt with an X instead of a C, and published by Kieran Entertainment. It is, based on my research, the only game to be developed by United Pictures. However, Kieran Entertainment, the game's original publisher, did publish a few other titles aside from this one. Namely, they published the 3DO version of a strategy game called The Perfect General, which released in 1996. They also published a third-person shooter called Esoteria: Techno Assassin of the Future on the PC in 1998. I suspect none of you guys have heard of either of those games, because I definitely had not either. Kieran Entertainment also tried to develop, not publish, but develop, a game called Incubus, which it planned on releasing on the original PlayStation with the help of another publisher, but unfortunately, while there exists conflicting reports online on whether or not it was successful in getting a publisher on board, the game was never released and Kieran closed its doors in early 1999. The version of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties that I know at least I played, and I believe Adam played as well, is Plumbers Don't Wear Ties Definitive Edition, which was, of course, brought into existence by limited run games, and of course released on Xbox consoles, PlayStation 4 and 5, Switch, and PC. In March of this year, they were actually advertising this game at the PAX that we all attended. They were showing off copies of the game at the same booth, Chad, where you and I played the Rugrats game, if you remember that.
Same audience, yeah. This game in Rugrats.
And actually, one thing that they were selling at their booth was the PS4 version of the game, which I did not know at this time, is only available in physical form. You can purchase the PS5 version of the game digitally or physically. You can't get the PS4 version digitally. You can only get it in physical form, which apparently is something that limited run games does with some of their other games.
What a travesty. How will those people ever survive?
I know, right?
I mean, it's Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. Who really cares? It is a little weird that like they would make it so you can't get the digital version of the more readily available console. But anyways, getting back to the game we're here to discuss today. Plumbers Don't Wear Ties sees you, the player, attempt to kindle a relationship between a handsome plumber called John and a woman called Jane who's on her way to a job interview. There's also Jane's prospective boss, Mark Thresher, a narrator who wears a chicken mask at various points, a karate woman who temporarily incapacitates said narrator, and cameos from various residents of downtown Los Angeles that probably didn't know they were going to be in this game. This game is a lot of things. It's a game that's profoundly confusing, that basically qualifies as softcore pornography, that many have claimed is one of the worst video games of all time. However, ironically, despite being advertised as being an FMV game, Plumbers Don't Wear Ties doesn't really have enough full motion video in it for it to be fully considered a full motion video FMV game. I feel like I've talked enough for now, so I'm going to hand the metaphorical mic over to my co-hosts. Adam, had you previously heard about Plumbers Don't Wear Ties before playing it? And what did you think of it?
Yes, I've heard about it before. I know it's supposed to be a very bad video game. So yes, I'm aware of it. What was the second part of the question?
What did you think about it?
Oh, this is... Because of this game, I've decided to do a segment on the regular podcast where we take people to court, and I'm going to sue people to take away their rights based on playing this video game. It is a thing where, like, I'll keep it short. I'm assuming it's going to get around to people. There are bad movies and bad video games, right? But a lot of times they have fun, redeemable qualities. And then sometimes there are things that don't have any redeeming qualities, so them being bad is just a waste of your time. And this is worse than the second thing I just described. Because not only is it not actually fun or interesting, first of all, it's not an FMV game like I say it is. Story is not interesting. It's so bad that one of the canon endings is like a blooper from the audio recording. They're like, this is canon now.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the funniest 30 seconds of the video game. It's not a real video game. There's nothing about it. It's nothing. This is literally, I think it's a money laundering scheme for this company in the 90s to try to move like $1,000 worth of drug money into like realistic taxable money. I don't think this is nothing. That's how much money they probably made. They didn't make anything. This is not even so fun. It's, so bad it's good. This is actually nothing. This actually is a waste of human beings' time and energy. Like, I could go out and make an awful college short film, and it would have some merits that might make it interesting. This has none. You are wasting my time and the audience's as well. Thank you a lot, Cozy.
Damn.
I'm going to go take a piss.
What was your prior history with this game, with any, and what did you think of it?
I don't think I'd ever heard of it except for you talking about it at various points over the last few years. And by me saying you talking about it, I think just the name of the title was only thing I'd ever heard. Was not aware it was supposed to be a fucking terrible game. Was not aware that it was this. And like Adam says, this is not a video game. This is a fucking terrible picture book. This is an HR corporate training picture book. And the pictures are made by, they gave toddlers disposable cameras and said, do your best to take pictures of these people and their rooms. And they did a terrible job. And this is fucking awful. And I am a 34-year-old man who is almost dead because I'm so old. and I need to be very conscious of the way that I spend my time. And even the 45 minutes that I watched of this on YouTube, which was an entire full playthrough of this game, was probably on my deathbed will be the one regret that I have in my life. And if I had paid money for this game because you put this on the fucking BARF poll and it won, I would have quit this podcast right now, moved to Canada, and found a way to change their constitution or whatever you all have over there as peons of the UK so that you and your family have no rights whatsoever.
Wow.
This game
so
was
I'm
abhorrent.
curious. I'm curious though, Chad, if you think this is like a corporate training video, what is it training you to do? What is the end goal of this as a training
I don't know if
video?
you've ever seen a sexual harassment, like a workplace sexual harassment video at a corporation, but that's what this is, doing a very, very bad job of being.
Yes, and sometimes those are funny.
version of.
This isn't.
Yeah, right?
Joel, what did you think of this game?
This might be like the worst thing I've ever witnessed in my life. I too did not buy the game. I just watched a YouTube playthrough. The one I watched was 2 parts. The first part was 50 minutes. The second part was like 20 minutes. So it was a little longer than the one that Chad watched. So I'm a far worse person than he is because I witnessed more of the game, I guess. But yeah, I'm all for game preservation, but limited run games ought to be ashamed of themselves because this game should have died a long, long time ago. It is one of the most fucked up games I've ever. Like we said, we can't even call it a game. It's messed up, man. Like, it's borderline racist, borderline sexist, maybe
borderline.
fully
No, I don't think
sexist.
borderline's in there at all.
Yeah, but it's like, it's so weird because I knew nothing about this game going in. I like did a quick Google search of it just to like see like what the cover art was. I didn't like watch any reviews or anything or watch any videos on it. I just saw like the cover art and some screenshots and I was like, oh, this is probably just like a stupid, choose your adventure, wacky, funny game from a long time ago. And when I texted you guys the other night, I was like, yo, this game's $20 and not on sale anymore. I was on my couch with my wife and I was like looking at it. I was like, oh, maybe I'll buy it because I heard it's only an hour long. Maybe I'll buy it. We'll play through it right now. And when I tell you, thank fucking God that game was not on sale, because if I had bought it, Elise would have been like, what the fuck are we doing right now? Like, why did you pay money for this? Why are we on the couch wasting our Saturday night playing this stupid fucking game? Yeah, this is just a terrible
Should have been like,
experience.
why are you're not allowed to hang out with those friends anymore.
Yeah.
They're a bad influence on you.
Which one of them told you to play this?
Cozy, before you go, I have 2 more things. I just in my head. Here's the thing, right? 2 more things. This game, again, we're talking about how short it is. It's like not even an hour long. They pad this game out with bullshit. How is there Remember in the parking lot when just like that girl pulls a knife, or that dude pulls a knife on the black girl because she doesn't want to go out with him? Why the fuck is that in the... What are we doing here? And
Well, my
also,
playthrough didn't have that.
if this was actually softcore, because there is like 2 nude slides where they're like in the shower or whatever, and then she's in lingerie sometimes. If this was softcore porn, at least it would have something going for it. It's like doesn't even do that. It's like, let's take pictures of them in the shower and then her pretending to do BDSM. Oh, but I'm also a nun. What the fuck? Stop wasting my time. Stop wasting my time. Stop wasting my time.
Also, you know what I didn't realize until I was trying
That's
to figure
enough.
out, you said there were like, wasn't that much FMV, and I was trying to think, what were the FMV parts? What were actually video? Was it the intro? And then I
it's
was like,
just
what
the
the
intro.
fuck? Do you remember the intro? When it was just fucking NASCAR cars with cartoon, I don't know, what was it, cats on top of it for some reason? What the fuck was that?
The cartoon panda.
What is this
that's
stupid
poorly
shit?
photoshopped.
NASCAR has nothing to do with this game. What is it?
All right. So, real quick to just go over my thoughts, experience with this game. I've alluded to the fact that this is a game that I discovered via the Angry Video Game Nerd way back in the day. And his video on it was like really memorable at the time because up until this point, most of his videos were either about like some old reviled game that culturally you probably knew about going into the video, like Superman 64, for example, or it was like, some obscure 8-bit game from the NES era. Like, I didn't know what Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde was before watching his video on it, but I could kind of in my mind imagine, I know what this is probably going to look like. This is going to look like an 8-bit Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde adventure. And this game kind of defied both of these things by both being a game that I myself and many other people had never heard of before, and also, being a game that is this weird sort of not really FMV experience with narrative choices that was very unlike any other game he covered on his channel. And watching it, I was like, oh my god, this really feels like a true discovery in a world where it felt like every other bad game was already known about and cataloged and accounted for. And yeah, when I learned last year that Limited Run Games was going to be remastering it, I immediately earmarked it as this would be something fun to play. Here's the thing. I can't realistically say that I actually like this game. I initially thought about coming into this podcast, big dick swinging, just being like, guys, I think the hierarchy of Cozy's top 10 24 games list has changed. I can't actually say that. I'm not going to actually say that. What I will say is, this isn't something that I love about this game. This is something that I love about sort of, I guess you could say, the circumstances surrounding this game. I love that the 3DO was this console that was marketed at the time as being for real gamers. The advertisements for it were so aggressive in their insistence that all the concurrent consoles around it, like the SNES and Sega Genesis, were toys. And, FMV games at the time kind of went hand in hand with this, in the sense that there were a lot of FMV games that were pushed into existence out of this sort of misguided idea that to be viewed as legitimate as other artistic mediums like movies, you had to have games that featured actors being filmed like they would be in a movie. And I just love how this game is an FMV game on the 3DO, a very self-serious style of game on a very self-serious console that itself is just completely unserious and just unconcerned with trying to be viewed as legitimate. I love its we don't give a shit attitude while also acknowledging that it is actually shit. And yeah, I mean, it's there's just something so interesting about this game being basically the video game equivalent of a shitpost in an era where that word, shitpost, basically did not really exist. Nowadays, you log into Steam and there are thousands of games, thousands of mods that are made under purely ironic pretenses, that are made knowing full well that they're just solely being made to troll whoever so chooses to play them. And in that regard, I almost have to commend United Pictures for being ahead of the curve and being we are making a game that is doing exactly that 2 decades before it becomes popular. Again, not actually giving the game any credit for actually being a good game or anything. And yeah, I will say, was something that that was a loud cough. That was some weird, what the hell was that? Anyways, hopefully the camera's microphones didn't pick that up. Something that was funny about this game, real quick, I'll say, I was in LA just a few months ago for IGN Live, and it was funny to occasionally see a few of the landmarks that they run by being things that I visited in person. There's one part where they run through LA's Chinatown. I was like, oh, wow. I was just here a few months ago. I can't imagine what it was like to film that sequence. And it's what are you guys doing? Half naked, running from this crazy, deranged boss character. Oh, we're making a video game. That must have been a fun afternoon in the early 90s.
Did you go see the generic rundown business park? Or their half-built, under construction, I don't even fucking know what it was that they were in, with drywall everywhere.
No.
And
Could you imagine
killer or
if
raper
a
or
game? Could you imagine if a game came out today and was we're pushing technology. This is going to be the world's first FM, not even world's first. This is an FMV game, right? If that's the thing they're advertising as I don't know what today's equivalent would be, ray tracing, right? This game is fully ray traced. This is a ray tracing game, and you load it up, and the only ray tracing is in the fucking intro video. That game would bomb so bad because people would hate the fact that they advertise that.
So obviously, there are no shortage of things about this game that we can criticize and pick apart. However, I actually specifically want to criticize the definitive edition of this game. Adam, you bought the definitive edition, but then you returned it, correct?
Oh yeah, I returned this bitch after an hour and a half.
Did you check out any of the extra features or things in the definitive edition?
Yeah, I watched a couple of the videos. They're also all up on YouTube if anyone wants to waste any amount of their life. So I watched a couple of them. Yeah.
I will say, I would recommend, if you're going to watch those videos, watch them on YouTube as well. So yeah, the definitive edition comes with a bunch of extras that honestly left a bit of a mixed impression. So there's this one mode in it That's like an entirely new thing called Plumb the Depths, where basically you're moving around a 3D maze, like in old school Doom, and you're unlocking concept art and some of the videos that you can later review in the game's gallery. And occasionally, Mark Thresher, who's the boss character from the main story, he appears and you have to shoot him with a plunger or you get a game over. I thought it was fun at first, but the problem is that like you have to like play through and unlock everything in that mode if you want to get the platinum on PlayStation. And actually navigating the maze is like a hassle because everything looks the same and there's no map. By the end of it, I was like, okay, I feel like you could have made this maybe a little bit simpler. And yeah, so then there are the documentary style videos, which are a mix of two different things. There are videos where they're talking to the people at Limited Run Games that help bring this definitive edition into existence. And then there are also a few videos with Jean-Marie Besson, who is the actress that portrays Jane in the game. And those videos where she's talking about how the game came into existence, some of her recollections of working on the game are actually very entertaining. I was thoroughly entertained listening to her talk about how this weird project came together. The videos with the Limited Run Games people, I gotta be totally honest, and like no disrespect to Jared Petty or Jeremy Parrish or any of the other talking heads that appear in those videos, who I think are all fine people, and I love the work they've done on the internet in the past. Honestly, those videos, not very interesting and kind of felt like padding. The kind of whole approach that they took in these videos is they're like, hey, you know, we want to try to contextualize Plumbers Don't Wear Ties and explain the circumstances in which it released. We want to treat this very seriously and not flippantly. And like, it's sort of understandable that they would want to do that. You know, this game, as we've already gone over, is kind of dated in a lot of ways. It depicts workplace misconduct, sexual harassment of the highest order. You know, it objectifies its female lead pretty hard, has some homophobia dashed in here and there. But
Cozy.
Yeah.
Can you explain the Asian woman's voice in the menus?
Oh, yeah. And then there's that as well, which not great as well. The thing about the videos from the Limited Run Games crew, they're just, like, frankly, they're just kind of boring and they just feel very kind of spread thin in terms of their focus. There are videos where it's like, let's talk about the advent of the CD-ROM and how it allowed games to store more data than before. And it's like, this is just not very interesting. And it feels like you inserted this in here to justify this definitive edition costing $20 when you should have like basically just given this away for free, honestly. What's interesting about Plumbers Don't Wear Ties is Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. And I wish that all the bonus videos were centered around that. I wish that they exclusively had bonus videos talking to the people that actually made the game, talking about the game in question. But it is also one of those things where, like, realistically, I understand that the Limited Run Games crew probably didn't have the biggest budget in the world to, like, get all the old people that made this game back together to talk about it. And, you know, something that they also allude to in the videos is, like, a lot of the people that worked on this game are scattered to the wind nowadays. It'd be kind of hard to...
Canceled, yeah.
Probably they're all in jail.
They're all in jail.
I don't know how many of them are or not in jail, but anyways. Something I will say, something that really did irk me, and Adam, I don't know if you noticed this, but when you first start the game, one of the first things that it does is it asks you if you first want to watch a video from Limited Run Games called, like, why remaster Plumbers Don't Wear Ties? And it presents it as, like, you really should watch this video before playing the game for the first time. And, like, the video in question, I found to be really boring, and it just kind of drones on, and it doesn't do a very good job of explaining, if you're uninitiated, what Plumbers Don't Wear Ties is. Like, watching the video, I'm like, I don't really understand who this video is for, because I feel like if you're coming into this game and you know nothing about Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, I feel like this video doesn't really good job of explaining what it is. And if you're coming into this game, like, knowing fully well what Plumbers Don't Wear Ties is, your mind fully made up on what it is, I feel like the video doesn't serve any purpose either. And so it's weird, and it just comes across to me as, like, trying to be, like, again, just trying to insert content in this game for the sake of inserting content, but not really needing it. I have a few other segments that I want to get to. Before I do, is there anything else that we here
I've
at the
been
cast
done with this game since before I started it.
Yeah, nothing.
All right. Chad, in the past on these BARF episodes, we've done a segment called Voice Actor Trivia. However, because this is an FMV game, and not just any old video game, I want you to sing a theme song for a segment that I'm calling FMV Actor Trivia.
All right. Fuck you. That's my song.
Damn. So, let's talk about some of the actors behind this fine FMV game. Fine with an asterisk. Jane, as mentioned earlier, is portrayed by Jean-Marie Bisson. She is an American professional wrestler, actress, model, and stuntwoman. She was part of a professional wrestling promotion called the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, or GLOW, in the 1980s, where she wrestled under the ring name Hollywood. She also appeared in other wrestling promotions such as Crush, Beauty Slammers, Hottest Ladies of Wrestling, and even NWA. Outside of wrestling, she actually appeared on a bunch of TV shows and films as an actress and stuntwoman, such as Days of Our Lives, Married with Children, Saved by the Bell, The Larry Sanders Show, and a lot of other things. She actually has like a pretty solid, like kind of surprising career. Mind you, she never appeared as like a big character in any of those shows, but pretty interesting. Now let's talk about John. John is portrayed by a male model called Edward J. Fasulo, though he's credited in the game as Edward J. Foster. His only other credit besides this game is directing and starring in a 2001 movie called Visions of Sugar Plums, which has a score of 2.5 out of 10 stars on IMDb. You can go up and look up the description for that one because it is interesting. Mark Thresher, the boss character, is portrayed by Paul Bocor, an actor friend of Gene who appeared in two other movies, Death Chase, which is a 1988 action movie, and Highways, which is a 1992 comedy road movie. The narrator / Jane's father, the guy with the chicken head at some points in the game, is portrayed by Michael Anderson, who's seemingly done nothing else besides this game. And the female narrator, who overtakes the main narrator, is portrayed by Thyra Metz, who, to my surprise, actually does have some credits to her name beyond this game. She portrays a character called Billy in a 1993 movie called Streets of Rage, which surprisingly has no relationship to the video game series. It's weird. And she also provided voice work for Emmett, which is a visual novel released in 1994 that was made to help Japanese people learn how to speak English. And before we close out the episode, one last thing I want to share real quick is I know I kind of took limited run games to task a little bit earlier, talking about how they handled this re-release of the game. However, one thing that they did to coincide with the Plumbers Don't Wear Ties Definitive Edition is they actually commissioned a novelization of the game in the style of the Worlds of Power series of video game books back in the 90s. In the 90s, there was the series of video game books called Worlds of Power that basically novelized the plots of popular NES games like Blaster Master, Metal Gear, Ninja Gaiden. They were infamous for taking a lot of creative liberties with their source material. They commissioned like a new book in the style of those old books, written by Mike Drucker, who you might know as being the Emmy-nominated writer, internet funny guy who's written for sites like IGN and Hard Drive, contributed to video games like Mario Party, Kid Icarus Uprising, and written for people like Samantha Bee and Jimmy Fallon. The book is actually not out yet. I actually really wanted to read it ahead of time to see if there's anything juicy to share on the podcast. Pre-orders for it only just opened up on the Limited Run Games website, and Amazon listing indicate that it will only be out at the end of October at the earliest, but certainly something to look forward to if you are a Plumbers Don't Wear Ties superfan that wants to experience everything this game has to offer. And with that, we've arrived at the end of tonight's BARF review. As we said at the top of the show, remember, as always, that you can catch regular episodes of the Respawning Fire podcast on twitch.tv/AffableIdiots every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as on YouTube and podcast services every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, you can also look forward to this episode going up on YouTube and podcast services soon as well. But that's not all. Now that September's BARF game is out of the way, we're ready to delve together into our BARF game for the month of October. Befitting the season's spooky atmosphere, we ask you to vote on 4 games that all involve magic or Wiccan references of some sort, with the games in question being The Cosmic Wheel of Sisterhood, Immortals of Avium, John Wick Hex, and Wizard with a Gun. And the game that won the poll is undecided because we have a 3-way tie on Patreon. Both John Wick Hex and Wizard with a Gun are both tied with 50% of the vote. And on Twitter, I believe Immortals of Avium was the winner there. So, Adam, as the person that put this poll together, you get to decide which one we're going to do.
Yeah, well, I don't have to worry about having the worst barf game of the year. So here's the question for you guys. So that being our three choices, the second place on Twitter was John Wick Hex. So I think that puts it between John Wick Hex and Immortals of Avium. Which one would you guys prefer to play?
I would rather play John Wick Hex personally. I don't want to.
You don't get to
steamroll
say
anyone
so.
else.
Let's
Chad
see.
and Joel, Immortals of Avium or John Wick Hex? Which are you guys leaning?
I'm looking at how long to beat for each of them.
Yeah, Immortals of Avium is 14 hours. John Wick Hex is 20.
Really? I'm shocked that they're
But
both that long.
is it 20 hours to beat or like 20 hours with like extra side content?
Main
Because
story.
that seems surprising for John Wick. Huh. I mean, like truth be told, I voted for John Wick Hex because I figured it would be the shorter of the two games. If Immortals of Avium is shorter, then
Which one is short? Which one is
Okay.
shorter for main story?
John Wick Hex is only 8 hours for main story. Immortals
Okay, see,
is
that's what I
14
thought.
hours main story. 20 hours is completionist for John Wick.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Then here's the other thing. Do you guys... Immortals of Avium is free on PlayStation Plus and Game Pass. Would you guys mind paying for John Wick Hex, I guess is my question. Because if you don't mind, we'll do John Wick Hex. If you want to play a free game, we'll play Immortals of Avium. I already own both. Chad?
Doesn't
Joel?
matter to me either way.
Both whatever.
I've got Game Pass for Gears of
All
War.
right, we'll do John
Wednesdays,
Wick
or
Hex.
Gears of
John Wick
Wednesdays,
Hex
so.
is the next game.
And the game that won the poll, as decided on right here and right now, was John Wick Hex. The game is available to play on most platforms, so be sure to give it a shot and share your thoughts on it with us ahead of our review of it at the end of the month. And of course, if you feel especially strong about it and want to join us directly on our review, hit us up and we'll be more than happy to have you be on the show as a guest host. Chad, Adam, Joel, thank you so much for being such wonderful co-hosts alongside me. If people wanted to find you online, where could they do so? And is there anything you're up to that you would like to plug? Starting with Chad. And that is Chad. Adam, is there anything you want to plug? And that is Adam. Joel. And with that, we'd like to thank you once again for tuning into Respawning Fire. We'll see you next time.